Well, the election in the United States of America is over now. So are we happy with the result? Do we really know who won? It's been for a few days already, but we don't even know who won. I mean, we're living in an extraordinary and confusing time. Anyway, the confusion on who won is not unexpected, or who's going to win is not unexpected. People have been talking about it for months before the election. I don't know about you folks, but I'm not surprised about all this confusion happening at this point, or who will eventually be a winner. I mean, I know who I want to be a winner, but I am not surprised about the confusion. Unlike 2016, no surprise here. It was a huge surprise in 2016. Was not prepared that Trump won the election, and that was a shock for me. So I was in Korea at the time with my brother, his son, and my son, two fathers and two sons, on a Korea road trip for about 3 weeks. My brother and I talked about it for years, and finally we were able to do it together. So in 20 days, we covered close to 1,000 kilometers of the distance around the western part of Korea. We visited 10 cities, ferried to 2 islands, climbed 5 mountains, ate at 20 different restaurants, I think, stayed at 5 Airbnb, and 3 steam room houses. See, in Korea, you pay only $10 per night, and you get to steam shower and can also sleep overnight, of course, with others in a large room. And then we walked, I think, about 10 kilometers each every day. It was an epic road trip. So everything was great until we visited Busan, the second biggest city in Korea, a port town, and only had a few days left until the road trip was over. And we were in a restaurant, and we were kind of watching TV, and then there was news, and then that the USA had an election and heard that Trump got elected as the next president of the United States of America. And we were like, what? How? How did a TV reality show host become a president? We were totally shocked and in disbelief, like many other Koreans. It was surreal for us. It was so shocking, we didn't even finish our dinner. We went to a pub and drank beers all night and wondering what's going to happen, contemplating what now? We were not prepared for the turn of event. Total surprise. Well, I'm not so surprised this time around. After what happened last time and after 4 years of surprises, nothing is surprising anymore, especially when it comes to U.S. politics. I'm prepared for the worst possible scenarios. And with this corona pandemic crisis hanging over us for the last 8 months, and nothing really surprises me anymore. I'm prepared for the worst. Are you prepared, folks? Are you prepared? How are you preparing for change? The changes that are happening all around us. Things are changing all the time, often too quickly and too much and too unexpected. And often we have to revise and sometimes ditch our plans, because the plans are only good if things don't change. But life happens and throws our plans out the window. So in today's Bible text from Matthew chapter 25, we find Jesus telling a parable. We have 10 bridesmaids on a wedding night. They are all on board with a great plan. They will wait for the announcement of the impending arrival of the bridegroom and his entourage, and then they will process out to greet them and escort the eagerly awaited couple back into the bridegroom's home. Once safely delivered into his own household, the bridegroom would declare that the magnificent wedding celebration could get underway. It was a great plan. But as with most weddings, something went wrong. Now, it was not uncommon for the bridal exchanges in the first century Near Eastern cultures to hit a snag during the final fiscal negotiations. Like all good labor management contract disputes, some deal breakers, some demands were held back until the last possible minute. No, we want 5 goats and you might want to throw in 3 chickens as well. Until we get what we want, we will not budge. Midnight marathon sessions between families weren't unknown, even as the wedding party waited around anxiously, all in their finery. So, despite all the careful planning, the 10 bridesmaids found themselves falling asleep, waiting for the delayed bridegroom troop to make their appearance. All 10 bridesmaids were aware of the plan. All 10 had a clear vision of the role they were to play in welcoming the bridegroom. But only 5 of the bridesmaids were also prepared for the unforeseen, but not unheard of, change of plan. These 5 wise bridesmaids were prepared by bringing along a reservoir of extra oil for their lamps. They were ready to go, but they were also prepared to wait if necessary. On the other hand, the 5 foolish bridesmaids were committed to the big plan, but until they awoke after midnight to sputtering lamps and the call, "Look, here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him," they didn't realize what a disastrous plan that was. While the prepared bridesmaids took their freshly trimmed and filled lamps out to greet the bridegroom, those who had only planned to participate were left running around in the dark, looking for a new plan. Great plans work as long as things don't change, but life is a series of unexpected delays and blockages and detours. We've got to be prepared for changes. Now, I don't think most of the world population was prepared for sudden change, a global scale change with this corona pandemic. I don't think many of us really was ready for the pandemic crisis. We all had plans, but then the pandemic hit. Then we all had to scrap the plans we had before the pandemic and found ourselves adjusting, adapting, and preparing for further changes that might happen. We thought the corona pandemic was an interruption, a short detour and delay, but we are in for long haul. It's a massive and long disruption to all aspects of our lives. And what the medical experts are warning us is that this corona pandemic will become endemic. It will be with us always, like our annual flu virus. And even if we get over this corona pandemic, we will not return to life as we were before. There is no coming back to normality as we hope. Even with vaccines and lower infection rates, people will not come out in droves because the fear of infection has locked us down mentally as well as physically. It has already damaged our psychological well-being. Many people are on the verge of mental breakdown. Many are suffering from stress and from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Like many veterans who had experienced the horrors of wars, a similar effect is happening to people everywhere globally after more than 8 months of house arrest. And of course, now even after corona pandemic is over, there's no guarantee that another pandemic, which might be much worse than corona, will not happen. In other words, folks, there's no coming back to normality as we understand. This is normal. And this will be normal that our next generation has to live with from now on. Are we prepared for this colossal change? Folks, don't plan for the future. Prepare for change. So I had grand plans for 2020. November 9th this year will be our 35th wedding anniversary. Sue and I talked about maybe a trip to Europe to celebrate our anniversary. Well, that's not going to happen. We're most likely taking a walk around the English Bay Beach instead. Our church's theme this year was growth. That was kind of focus this year had for 2020 for Knox. Growth in both spiritual growth and numerical growth. Well, the church building has been shut down in the last 8 months. It's been sitting empty. What a growth, right? We didn't envision that at all. Of course, we are growing in our online worship attendance, but in-person growth, no, that's not going to happen anytime soon. The United Church of Canada General Office Pension Plan Department just sent me and other ministers a letter saying that since there are less people contributing and more people using both pension and health benefits, and since the stock market has been so volatile because of pandemic crisis, they are in deficit. So they are raising our premium from next year. Well, that's okay. What I'm worried about now is by the time I retire, there might not be any money left on the pension fund. I had a plan for my retirement. Now I'm not so sure my plan would work. I really need to prepare for the worst possible scenario. I might have to work until I retire from life. Maybe working for Skip the Dish, riding my bicycle, delivering food, and up and down the Vancouver downtown area. We had a grand plans, folks, before the pandemic. Well, plans have a way of changing. The great plans are great as long as things don't change. We must be prepared for the delays and detours and disruptions in life. And for those who focus less on the plans than on being prepared for various scenarios, it's far easier to find a new way, think in a new direction, look for and find new solutions. Don't plan for the future. Prepare for change. The 21st century is all about being well prepared, not about having master plan. When life strands you and lands you in unexpected places, are you prepared and willing to ditch your plans and step forward in faith and move in a new direction? In the book of Joshua, in chapter 24, it's another lectionary reading for today, this coming Sunday. Well, today is Sunday, but I'm recording this on Friday. So we read the Israelites have settled into the promised land, the promise fulfilled. And Joshua, he's quite old, and Joshua gathers his people and reminds them, he says, you have a choice. There are many gods in this foreign land, many idols that you brought from the Egypt and many idols of this land. Now, what would you do? You have a choice, he says. Would you choose to serve God or all these idols? And he goes on, he said, for my family and me, we will choose to serve God. And then all of them said, we will choose God and serve God and God only. How do we prepare for life's unexpected turns and delays, detours, and disruptions? Well, we prepare by stepping forward with faith to choose God and to serve God. Life is a series of choices we make. Life is a series of services we perform. And it's not just about making the right choices. It's really about living faithfully according to the choices we have made. It's about willingness to serve and sacrifice. Some have said that this corona pandemic crisis and what's going to happen after this is one of 10 worst crises humanity has ever faced in history. Well, I'm not so sure about that, but certainly what we are going through is comparable to a crisis our previous generation has faced during World War I and World War II. You know what? I just wish that many of them were still here with us now to help prepare us for this crisis. More than any other generation, that generation has faced a crisis and can teach us how to prepare. In the times of unexpected wars and economic crisis, our previous generation, so-called baby builders, my parents' generations, those in 90s and beyond, the veterans like Ross McCauley, have not only survived, but also showed us how to serve and how to sacrifice for their family, for their country, and for the peace in the world. To protect and build lasting peace in their service, to serve the nation and serve God, many of our young men and women went to work to sacrifice their lives, and many stayed home and sacrificed and served the country. Our world is a much better place to live because of their service and sacrifices. we are reaping the fruit of their sacrifice, their willingness to choose God and to serve God in the name of peace. If all of us can look up to our elders and veterans and learn from their legacy, learn from their experiences, learn from their willingness to serve and even sacrifice their lives, this corona pandemic is but a blimp in our lifetime. Life is such a gift. The privilege and paradise of living and breathing and loving and eating. But life sometimes hits us hard with hurricanes and earthquakes, tsunamis, tornadoes, and corona pandemics. Our big plans of how we want to live in paradise have been blown to smithereens by sickness and death and divorce, financial difficulties, relationship disasters, and global pandemic. But can we be open to new ways of living and being in paradise? It may not be on the course we've highlighted for the journey, but can we get off the beaten path and trust the Spirit to choose to follow and serve the Lord?